God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male or female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth.
All right, thank you very much. So in this passage, I'm opening the question. It's an opening question for you to answer. What do you see about spouses in this passage?
They're to work together to rule over the earth.
Okay, I've got some no's and I got one. That we see man and woman, right? And God intended for man and woman to be married together. What's the second thing? Thank you very much,
Be
Michael.
fruitful and multiply.
What?
Be fruitful and multiply.
Be fruitful and multiply. All right. And so we see the beginning of God's plan. There's a whole lot more to it. But this is where it begins, with man and woman, and part of their responsibility, God's command to them, what he is expecting of them is to be fruitful and to multiply. Thank you very much. Anybody else see something else in there that I missed? Okay, let's go to the next one. Love your children by loving your spouse. A godly order, command, is marriage and then children. So we're all familiar with that. The idea, society has a set of rules, God's people have a set of rules, and God has a set of rules. I propose to you, God's rule is you become married and then you have children. You become married and then have children. We all see that, we all understand that. Passage. Titus chapter 2, verse 4. Titus is writing, and he says to the older women, what? So that they may encourage the young women to love their husbands and to love their children. Now, I picked this passage because I wanted to say something I want to say. That may not be what God is saying. Y'all help me and see if y'all agree with me. What comes first? Love God and love your spouse, or love your children?
Spouse.
Spouse? Yeah, that's the kind of the way I read it. And I'm reading it into that myself. I think that's what it does say. The importance of loving your spouse. Wives, love your husband. We can look in other passages like Ephesians. I can't remember the other words yet. Maybe it's in 1 Timothy 5. Where husbands are to love their wives. But the idea here is that wives and husbands should love one another as a priority. As a priority, and yes, we're to love our children. Sylvia, you had your hand up.
Ephesians 5.
Ephesians 5. Thank you very much. And so we see a priority that God sets as a standard. Love your spouse and love your children. That's a simple command. It's a simple guideline that God gives us. Yet sometimes people get that out of balance. Out of balance. Did you raise your hand? No. Just making sure. She's raising her hand over here too. Boy, I could sell a lot today. Boy, we got hands going right from there. So we're going to talk about three things. Okay, one second, Sylvia. We're going to talk about three things this morning in loving your children by loving your spouse. Yes, sir.
If you go to Ephesians 5, speaking to the wives, it says that each of you, in particular, love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. So it's interesting that respect is specifically given to the women.
Thank you. It's a challenging relationship. It's a challenging relationship. Husband and wife, they spend lots of time together. You know, whenever you were young, it was nice and easy. That puppy love kind of stuff at the first. And then you're infatuated with them at some point in time. And then after about 3 years and 2 kids and thousands of dirty diapers and spitting up and the floor is a mess and the house is a mess and the banker's calling because you haven't paid a bill, the spousal thing gets a little difficult. But spouses are a team. They work together. They take on each and every single challenge that comes their way. And that's what we want to talk about this morning. Love your children, love your spouse. Very simple concept. Does anyone else have something else? Okay. Love your children by maintaining a godly marriage. Now, I'm sounding a whole lot like what we heard a couple of months ago. I want to get some key points this morning. Number 1, do you love your children enough to begin and maintain a godly marriage? So that's kind of a question that you would ask somebody on the front end of raising children. Do you want to begin and maintain? But part of that is also, are you going to maintain your marriage, a godly marriage? How much do you love your children? We all are aware of people who have had children and they couldn't wait for them to graduate school so they could get a divorce. It's sad. The only reason they're staying together is just to raise the kids. Something broke in that relationship. Something came apart. The wheels came off the car. At some point in time, children became more important than each other in their relationship. And so they were willing to stay together long enough to get the kids out of the house. And how terribly tragic that is. We see families that don't even make it to that point. The kids are 4 or 5 years old and the parents divorce. The United States of America is the #1 country for the most kids born into families that have divorced parents. 40% of the kids in this United States of America have divorced their parents of some sort. It's shocking. And America is #1. Why? Somebody help me, why? I got 4 reasons.
It's easy.
What?
It's easy.
Easy. Thank you. What else?
In most other countries, the parents pick your spouse and not you.
Okay.
I've never got anybody to agree to do that. But
Yeah, I don't think I want to go there. But I don't feel like I'm qualified to pick my kids' spouses. They did a pretty good job on their own, so I'm going to give them full credit. Yes, Michael.
We're a selfish country, and so it's selflessness to raise children and to be in a marriage.
Okay.
Any relationship really is selfless.
We're a very selfish individual nation. It's accepted to do that, right? Yes. Jeremy.
We've become a country that doesn't believe in keeping promises across the board. Just marriage is another promise that is broken.
Yeah. And covenant vows don't mean anything. We just don't. Used to, your word was your honor was your word. Your word was an honor. Whatever you say is going to happen. You're going to make that happen. And as a country, we don't necessarily follow that line. Yes, ma'am.
Straying away from the Lord or never being in the Lord.
As a nation, we're a Christian nation, right? And yet we more and more, fewer and fewer of the population is Christian, have any standards that they live by. You know?
I know you mentioned how many are in a divorced household, but more commonly now, people are choosing not to get married. So there's not even a divorce to be measured. They're just cohabitating and having children and moving on and moving that way. So there's not any holiness seen in marriage or a desire for that lifelong
agree. We had a couple at work get married. They have been together for 13 years and have 3 children, and just never got married. Their parents never encouraged them to do that, and they wanted an out just in case. Yeah, they could lack it. Someone else have their hands up. I think another thing in this world we see is this what I guess society called free love that we see back in the 60s, or late 50s, 60s, and 70s. We as a society bought into that idea. Birth control came along, and that, and the destimulation of people being divorced. Years and years ago, that didn't happen. It was not accepted. Society didn't accept that. And now we accept it just like going in buying a candy bar at the store. Just happens. Just there. It's just there.
There was also a time in this country where the legislatures or the individual states had to approve divorces. And now that is a archaic thing.
Yeah, we've changed the laws now. It's so much easier now to get a divorce. You can get a divorce for $99. You see it on the billboard. It probably costs you a little more than that nowadays. Inflation. But it's terrible. We as a society have taken and demarginalized. We've dropped the value of marriage. And yet it's very key in chapter 1 of Genesis. Before children, marriage. And that's why I'm bringing this up. Do you love your children enough to begin and maintain a godly marriage? Do you love your children enough to correct any wrongs in your marriage? Woo! Start to step on toes a little bit there, huh? Think about it. We're human. There's another human that sits next to us, dinner table. Are you willing to say, I was wrong? Are you willing to say, I forgot? Are you willing to say, I'm sorry? Are you willing to say, I owe you something that I need to make it right? Many times, as Michael pointed out, we're very selfish people. Marriage is according to my rules, not her rules. Not my spouse's rule. Whatever I think is what is true. And my spouse is just going to live with that and move on. And what a terrible concept to bring into a relationship. It's a mutual relationship where we work together. The question is, not only will you do that, but do you love your children enough to do that? To correct those wrongs in front of your children. Who in here has never done anything wrong in front of your children? I'll help you raise your hand if you need some help. We've done it. We have to tell our kids, Dad wasn't paying attention. He did something that he shouldn't have done. Dad wasn't paying attention. He didn't do what he should have done. Mom may say, I apologize. I was upset and I hollered at you and I really didn't mean to do that. I'm going to do better. I'm going to work on doing that better in my life. And we go to them and show them that we care. We care enough that we're going to fix the wrongs that are done in the house, in our life, whatever that may be. Do you love your children enough to correct any wrongs in your marriage? 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. I want everybody to turn there. The font's too small. But anyhow, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. Jeremy, I'll ask you to read that passage if you don't mind.
You husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with someone weaker, since she is a woman. Show her honor as a fellow heir
show her honor, show her grace as a fellow heir. At some point in time, we have to realize our spouses, just as Sylvia brought up Ephesians chapter 5, wives are to respect their husband. We see this mutual respect. Society has a mutual respect for marriage, but godly desire for mutual respect in marriage is based upon the fact that both are fellow heirs. They're children of God. Not just a nice guy, not just a nice lady, not just a good cook, not just a high wage earner. I got the richest husband on the block. My wife is the best baker in the block. That's not the standard we're looking for. We're looking for a standard that God has. They are fellow heirs. It's hard enough to get to heaven on your own. It's a whole lot easier when somebody's helping you push you there. Gina pushes pretty hard, by the way. Because my heels get dug in every once in a while. She's got to put a little extra work in. And there's times I get to throw a rope around her and drag her a little ways. And so we work together to help each other to get to heaven. That's the standard by which we use as God uses. Enjoy life together. Who in here enjoys changing diapers? Come on now. Oh, we got Sylvia back there. Oh, yeah. Moms do it. Grandmas love it. And at some point in time, dads never do it again. That's kind of the way it goes. But what about the times when you don't have to change diapers anymore? And they can make their own bed. We start to smile a little bit, right? We kind of enjoy them taking responsibility. And so as spouses, we need to enjoy life together. Last year, I challenged the men every day in the month of February to do something nice for their wife. I didn't forget this year. I didn't get done what I wanted to do. So you're on your own, guys. I was going to take Valentine and come up with things to do, and then no, I love you. Now I couldn't get it done. I didn't get it done. I hadn't done anything for my wife all February. So y'all probably hadn't. But you should enjoy life together as a spouse. Remember those memories. Build the bond between the spouse. Why? Because we love our children. And lastly, partnership comes first, then parenthood. I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but think about it. Which relationship is going to be the longest lasting? It's that husband-wife. That bond needs to be there. We need to cultivate it. We need to make it work and not let children get in the way of our husband-wife relationship. Husband-wife relationship. You love your children by maintaining a godly marriage. Love your children. Oh, yes, Charles.
Well, I'm just gonna say that I've seen movies and I've known people, single mothers, when they start dating or something, there's a different element in their mentality because they watch how this person they're dating interacts with their child. Then they're thinking about what kind of dad will this guy make. They should have been thinking about that a long time ago.
Should have already been resolved. Yes. Anybody else have a comment? Thank you, Charles.
I was just gonna say, don't wait till Valentine's Day or anniversary to show special attention to your wife. You know, neglect it all year and then, oh, it's Valentine's Day.
Oh!
It's happy and David, yeah.
Ouch. All right. So, guys, it's not just a February 14th. It's every day. Finding something to do to enhance your marriage, strengthen that bond. Thank you very much, Alan.
But it goes both ways.
It does, it
It's
goes
not
both
just the
ways.
husband, you know.
Women just aren't as forgetful as guys. It's a general rule of thumb. Yes, Jeremy.
I think back when I was a child, the most unsettling times in my life were when I saw my parents struggling with each other. I think there's a sense of security that children experience when they see their parents loving each other. And the opposite is true. It's deeply troubling and creates all kinds of insecurities and anxieties to see our parents struggle with each other.
They do set the tone for the family. Yes. And so, it is important that we maintain that bond so parents aren't feuding and fighting and back-talking each other. It's not healthy for a family. What are you willing to do as a spouse because you love your children? Thank you, Jeremy. So, love your children by sharing responsibility. So y'all thought I stepped on your toes in the last one. Here I go again. We're going to be stepping on toes. Sharing responsibility. God has given the responsibility of raising children to both the father and the mother. Our nation has rewritten that rule. Children can be raised by one parent. That seems to become the norm nowadays. They've taken God's rule. What was God's rule? One man, one woman, and they both raised the family. Fathers had the responsibility to train and raise their children in the admonition of the Lord. I'll get it out. Mothers are to teach their children at home. And so that responsibility is put on both husband and wife. And yet, I see as our modern industrial wheel began to turn in the 1920s and 1930s, it went into high gear as World War II came about. This mighty industrial machine. What did it do? It took families off the farm and brought them into the city, and the dads worked. And they worked, and they worked. They took dads and they put them in foreign fields as soldiers. Those who were supplying the soldiers. Those who were at home providing for the soldiers. So we as a society all of a sudden found out, maybe mom can raise the kids by themselves. And everybody came home from the war. And now you've got this mighty industrial engine running, and everybody wants a toaster. And mom wants a washing machine. And 60s come around and every house has to have an air conditioner. Well, if you got dad, boy, that costs money. Dad can't afford all that. Dad's already got 2 jobs. How about let's put mom to work? So we could keep up with the Joneses. The Joneses now have 2 cars next door. And so all of a sudden we've taken this idea, and not only does mom and dad not raise the kids, we send them off to daycare. So mom and dad can make money so we can keep up with the Joneses. We have to be careful, folks. We have to be careful in what we do for our kids. The responsibility is for the father and for the mother to raise the kids. Do not let the responsibility of raising your children fall solely on your spouse. There was a time in our lives that I was driving to work 1 hour one way and home 1 hour one way. And you know what that was? I was robbing my kids of 2 hours a day. Okay, so that was time that I could drive and calm down, and when I got home I'd be a happy dad and all that kind of stuff. You make all these excuses, but whenever you look at the end of the day and you write down the total amount of time that you're with the kids, the time that you're with your spouse, the time you're on the road, the time you're working, and it turns out that I spend more time away from home than at home. Well, then you gotta have quality time when you're at home, right? So we as a society, we keep looking at things to make it sound the way we want it to sound. But think about it. Are you there present in your kid's life? Or are you putting that all on your spouse? It was not fun when I came home and Gina said, you need to have a talk with your son. What was she asking for? She's been there all day, and our son has done something. I don't know why. I got to drag it out of him. I wasn't home. I wasn't there to take care of the things I needed to take care of because I was busy driving back and forth. You have to be careful. Take your part seriously and fulfill it every day. Every day. That's hard to do. Moms don't have a problem doing that every day because dads dump the responsibility on mom and they go off to work. We have to be careful that we all share the responsibility of raising our kids. You have to have a plan. The plan is not that you got to be at work at 7 and you get off at 5. The plan is, what are you going to do with your kid that particular day? What are you trying to teach them that particular day? How to tie their shoes, how to hit a baseball, how to make a pie, how to comb their hair, how to make their bed. You pick something and you put it in, you put them in their, you put yourself in their lives in raising them, taking them to the next goal. Maybe that's to go to the park. Maybe that's to work in the flower bed. Maybe they're going to go out in the garden and they're going to pick bugs and you pick vegetables. I don't know. What are we going to do that we're going to spend time with our kids day in and day out to raise them? To raise them. How?
A lot of times in a lot of homes, and you see it on TV too, you know, the father's gone to work all day, he's tired, he comes home, he wants to be fed, he wants to sit down with the recliner and watch TV. And the kids, you know, like I say, you gotta interact with your children after work. Yes, you do go off to work and that's your responsibility and it's good. But there's gotta be some interaction with your children and not just sit and watch, sit on the couch or whatever.
That was another thing that modern industrial engine brought us was a lazy boy chair to sit in. And so society shows us on TV what is acceptable. Dad comes in, he drops his stuff at the door, he gets some food, and he goes and sits and watch TV. Everybody worked, and isn't that what all your guys, all the guys you work with, isn't that what they do? You know, that's the idea. You don't talk about your kids, you don't try to raise your kids' mind.
On that point, I have a mentor, and one of the things that he signs off on all his messages normally is no reserves, no returns, no no returns, no reserves, no regrets. There is no tomorrow. Leave nothing in your tank. And if you actually genuinely do that, and not just like that, you know, the guy that wants to just come in and sit down, and I'm so good. Well, you got, I guarantee you still have enough to do something with your kids. You know, whether that's, I'm gonna sit outside and watch you play. You know, man, I'm tired. But there's something that you can do. It's making that choice. And I think a big problem with our society now is that we have so many comfort things that it has become very hard to do hard things, make that choice. Because it is a choice to get up and keep moving when you're tired.
We become lazy.
Lazy.
The Archie Bunker mentality.
And it's accepted, you know, it's society-wide.
Oh, yeah. Yes, John.
The one thing, when you were talking about back when things were better, there wasn't TV.
You're right. No TV. Let's move on. Love your children by remaining committed. Here we go, stepping on toes. God witnessed each of you making a marriage vow to one another. We talk about, at some point in time, husbands and wives, they kind of drift away. They kind of have their own thing in life. And they forget. Back here in this day, vowed that they would be together forever. They would love each other forever. Sickness and health and all that other kind of stuff you say that you're supposed to remember, and I never can remember. I can't memorize it. And so commitment no longer is important. It's no longer required. But if you love your children, you will remain committed to your spouse. Why? Bear this in mind. God witness you make a vow. God doesn't like people who don't keep their vows. How else can I say it? That's as simple as I can say it. God's taking record of that. Married couple who truly love each other and their children will remain committed to each other until the kids are out of school. Till I don't love her anymore. No, the rule is for life. Kyle is interesting in his career choice that he makes. He tells me that Canadian geese mate for life. It's the same pair. And he's put collars on a pair, and they leave Texas and go to Alaska. And they find each other in Alaska. And they raise young, and they fly south for the winter, and they find each other back here in Texas. And then they fly back to Alaska, and they find each other in Alaska. 2 birds. They all do that. How difficult is it for us to remain committed for life? It should be something that's so easy. It's built into us. Yes.
I think another thing is that in our society we are just generally short-sighted, seeking kind of that instant gratification. And I think through the Bible we see examples of not even just the life ahead of us, but generation. So married couples were together raising children that were going to raise children, that each generation raising children that can raise children to love God. And they're committed to one another for life to that end.
And their commitment, as Charles said, was made on somebody they didn't pick. Their parents picked that person for them to be remain committed to for life. Yes, Kevin.
Malachi condemns the Israelites for divorcing the wives of their youth, the love of their youth. So we need to be very careful that we don't do that.
The challenges that we have today are not just because of our society today. It's been going on from the beginning. We see King Herod was condemned by John the Baptist for taking his brother's wife, excuse me. Yeah. His wife's brother.
They're both bad.
Yeah. Taking his brother's wife. And so that's been going on from the beginning of time. We're out of time. We're going to talk about fathers briefly. Fathers need to guard the home. And I'm going to go very quick. Fathers need to guard the home. Must be willing to give themselves. Christ gave himself for the church. Husbands should also be willing to give themselves for those who are in charge. Think about it. What are the challenges that fathers have to guard against? Deceit, lies, friends, schools, television, children's peers, liberal teaching in society. They're out there all around. And they're just trying to find a way into the house. They're looking for a little crack in the door. They found the window open just a little bit. But fathers have to guard the house. Wake up, take the lead. Mothers keep the home. Mothers, God has given women a tremendous task. One that can only be done with much patience and prayer. One that must be done with diligence and perseverance. A home should be a place of praise, where the name of God is spoken often and honored always. A home should be a place of hospitality.
Look in there. Just look back there, Liam. This way.
A home should be a place of holiness. Children are always watching you. Are you teaching them holiness, modesty, kindness,
Okay, thanks.
service to others, love of God? This is a home and on. Husbands and wives, we have a responsibility. Fathers, wake up. Wake up. Women, tremendous task. Thank you very much for all that you do. There's a lot to be done. Raising the fear of God and children is essential. Anybody have a comment before we close? Yes.
I've been trying to figure out which one's worse. Everybody talks about single parent families. And I've been trying to figure out if that's worse or if it's parents are the same sex. Because they're letting children be adopted by same sex marriage. I'm trying to figure what the effect of that's gonna be.
I think it's gonna be bad. Equally bad. Thank y'all very much.